here to bring a new type of news show.
New insights, new styles, and new topics every single day.
We are News Generation.
Bringing news just for you. It's Friday, June 21st here in Seoul. I'm Song Yejin and you're watching News Generation. Today we're joined by Kwon Ji-hyun.
Good morning.
Good morning. And Walter Lee.
Lovely to be here.
Lovely to have you. Now both are here to speak on behalf of people in their 20s and 30s. Now as usual, we're going to start with our news feed, which covers different hashtags and news items that have been trending online over the past 24 hours. If you're living in Korea and a big fan of McDonald's French fries, here's some bad news. McDonald's Korea announced on Thursday that it won't be able to sell French fries temporarily due to unexpected supply chain issues. As a result, customers can't order a full meal or set, as it's called in Korea, but they will receive a medium-sized Coke with any burger purchase. While McDonald's Korea didn't specify when French fries would be back on the menu, they assure customers that they are working hard to resume sales of them as soon as possible. Now, this isn't the first time they faced such challenges. In 2021 and 2022, they had trouble importing potatoes due to maritime transportation issues during the COVID-19 pandemic. Moving on, staying in Korea, you'll be able to enjoy a week-long holiday for Chuseok or Korean Thanksgiving next year. The Korea Aerospace Administration announced next year's calendar specifications on Thursday. There will be a total of 68 holidays in 2025, the same as this year. Now, these holidays refer to Sundays and national holidays. For those who have a 5-day work week, you'll have a total of 119 days off. Finally, in sports news, the anti-discrimination charity Kick It Out, based in the United Kingdom, has taken action regarding Tottenham Hotspur captain Son Heung-min experiencing racial discrimination from his teammate Rodrigo Bentancur. The organization says it received numerous complaints about his comments and has forwarded these reports to the club and relevant authorities. The incident occurred when Bentancur was asked by a presenter on Uruguayan TV last week for his son's shirt, to which he replied, "Sonny's? It could be Sonny's cousin too, as they look all the same." Bentancur later apologized to Son on social media, calling his comments a very bad joke and insisting he would never disrespect or hurt him. Son responded on Thursday, saying that he has spoken to his teammate. He knows he made a mistake and said that he would never intentionally say something offensive. Now, Kick It Out stated that this issue highlights a broader problem that significantly affects East Asian and other communities. Now, how do you view Bentancur's comments? And I know that you guys have experience living abroad, so did you encounter similar situations like this?
Well, as a person who follows football very closely, I do know that this is not actually the first time a Uruguayan has been in trouble for racist comments.
Right.
Back maybe almost 10 years ago, there was a situation with Luis Suarez as well on Patrice Evra, Manchester United player. Now, for this situation to happen, for Bentancur, I think it was a very, very silly move because Son is the captain of Tottenham Hotspur. Even though that they have talked to each other, I still think it might affect the way that Bentancur is now used on the field. And like you said, I've been overseas before. Yes, I have unfortunately, dealt with discrimination, especially in the early 90s, being an 80s, 90s kid. Yeah, it's not great, obviously, but there's a lot of improvements where I grew up in Australia. It may be different for some people in other countries, but for me, it seems to be getting better.
Right. It's great to hear that things are getting better in certain countries. Hope to see that we could see these changes even more. Now, Jiyeon, I know that you have experience living in the United Kingdom, right? So
right.
how was your experience?
Well, I have faced racial discrimination in the UK when I was younger, and it was deeply hurtful, still hurtful. There were local residents who opposed our family moving into the neighbourhood in London. I have even been asked if Koreans only eat meat dog.
Really?
Yes. And at first it was kind of upset, but I stayed calm and responded calmly and explained everything accurately and truthfully. And handling racial discrimination requires resilience and a clear understanding of one's rights. And it's quite important to, educate others about cultural diversity and respectfully challenge misconceptions as well.
Right, and I think that this issue became even bigger because Bentancur is a public figure. He's a football star, so they should especially be more responsible with what kind of comments they make, especially on the media. And that was our news feed for this Friday. So now we're going to move on to our main discussion of the day. Today we're going to talk about a shopping trend that was once considered a niche activity but has now become mainstream. Now take a look at the screen to find out more. Secondhand shopping, or thrifting, which started with people finding ways to repurpose and reuse items, has been around for a long time. Secondhand shopping soared in popularity during the two world wars and the Great Depression. Then, the 1950s and 60s were an era of secondhand clothing, with people trying to find unique, one-of-a-kind pieces affordably and sustainably. Thrifting saw a downturn during the 80s and 90s due to the rise of fast fashion, but fast forward to the present, it's made a comeback, especially among millennials and Gen Z. A survey done by one of the two major secondhand goods applications in Korea showed that 84% of its users were millennials and Gen Z. So, what's behind the younger generation's love for secondhand shopping? Right, so the pie chart that we just saw shows how much our generation has become a major consumer at secondhand or thrift stores. So here in the studio, I want to start off by asking you guys, are you also a regular customer at these stores?
I am. I think I use them a lot.
I can tell.
Maybe every single day. I have many items actually listed on the secondhand trading sites currently. I usually buy things that aren't worth getting new, like kids' toys and baby products.
Right.
And because, you know, they have a short usage period. I have also bought Chill's books from secondhand sites. Buying a whole set of new books can cost hundreds of thousands of won. But on secondhand sites, I can get them cheaply from my neighborhood, which is great. And my hubby, my husband, he is into music as a hobby and trades on music-related used goods platforms, I think, every single day. And I guess he's become quite an expert in this field. He can now distinguish who's scammer and who's not on these sites. Yeah.
So I think that Juyeon's family has become an expert or an avid user of these secondhand platforms. Now to our other panelist, Walter, do you also use these stores regularly?
Personally, I don't use them, but like Juyeon mentioned, baby products are a common thing that goes in and out of your house quite frequently, because you think that maybe you could keep something for, especially clothes, for a long period of time. It's a couple of months and then you have to get them right out the door. So my wife sells a lot of baby products, also just anything that we don't need at the moment. But yes, like Jihyun's husband as well, my wife has become a bit of an expert where she knows exactly what to do. I don't think she gets the best price for them. I think whoever buys off her are getting a bargain. So if you really want to get a good bargain, just try and find my wife's ID and then maybe you can get something good. But for me, I really don't use these sort of applications, because I don't really buy a lot of things for myself, but when I do, it's usually tech. And when it comes to tech, I kind of want brand new stuff.
Right, because of the warranty and those services, right?
Exactly.
Right, but now the craze among millennials and Gen Z towards secondhand shopping has gotten bigger, so much so that we're seeing experts rising, for example, like Juyeon's hubby and Walter's wife. So I want to ask you, starting from Yujeon, what do you think are some of the driving factors behind our generation's great interest in this type of shopping?
Well, there are many convenient secondhand trading platforms available here in South Korea, like the Carrot One, as you may know. The MZ generation highly values cost effectiveness, and they believe that if a product offers high performance at a low price, it's fine to buy it secondhand. It's practical to buy quote-unquote used items for things that don't need to be new.
Right.
There's also a growing awareness that recycling helps the environment. Definitely. It also fosters a sense of community through peer-to-peer interactions and exchanges. Here's an interesting story. I once heard of a couple who met through second-hand trading.
Wow.
And eventually tied the knot.
Whoa.
Oh, wow.
And you know what? My husband met someone through second-hand guitar trading, and now he received tutoring lessons from that person.
That's amazing.
It is indeed. So these days, some can actually meet their significant other or teacher through second-hand trading platforms.
Wow, so it's not just about saving money. Of course, the platforms have made these shopping methods more accessible, but it can also help protect the environment. And also, if you want to meet your significant other or your lifetime partner, it may work, as Juyeon mentioned. Now, what do you think are some of the other reasons why, Walter?
Well, I think especially with thrift shops, like items such as clothes have become really trendy. People like vintage as well.
Right,
you get
right.
a lot of people going to the even like the older stores where they have all the vintage clothes, and that's coming back into fashion as well. Polaroid cameras as well. For some reason, that has become a trend that's coming back. And at one point, we did talk about this on the show not so long ago. A lot of MZers are also using old phones as well because they want to get away from their smartphones and they want to get on just contacting people rather than having to use a smartphone. So all of the old stuff is coming back into fashion, which is great because in Korea, at one point, it was sort of a bad thing to buy secondhand. Like you don't, like in other Western countries in Australia, secondhand is very common. But in Korea, it didn't seem like it was a big trend until recently. And like Jihyun mentioned also, the cost effectiveness. Like I will add, given the current situation with inflation, people are turning to, everything's expensive. Everyone's turning to what they can buy within a budget. And sometimes that's on these secondhand platforms.
Now, I think that you mentioned a very good point. I think that the reason why the younger generation is more into secondhand shopping is because of their changing perspective towards used items, right? So let's talk a bit more about that, Jihyun.
Yes. If you look at the past, in the past, people often felt uneasy and negative about buying those used goods. But these days it's totally different. Now people's perception has changed a lot. Many now see buying used goods as environmentally responsible. People appreciate the unique charm and even the history that often come with second-hand items.
Right, so they're definitely becoming more cherished or valued, these second-hand items when compared to the past. Now, we're talking about second-hand shopping and how that's become a trend among our generation. So to find out whether this is a global trend, we also asked our viewers whether they've bought or sold items at second-hand shops, and if they have, what kind of items? Now, here's what 3 of them had to say. So if we look at the comments, MIMS says, I love getting unique planters from antique stores. My favorite is a frog planter that I am growing something succulent in. Benny says, for me, my younger sister has a second-hand DSLR camera and this was for her schoolwork. We didn't have a camera before that, so it was a great memory for my younger sister. Leon says, yes, as a K-pop fan, I have used a popular second-hand marketplace app here in Singapore called Carousel to buy some second-hand K-pop merchandise. The benefits are the price is a lot cheaper and most of them are still in really good condition. So looking at our viewers' comments, planters, also cameras and K-pop merchandise, a lot that you can buy on secondhand platforms at affordable prices. Now to expand our discussion after looking at the comments, you guys, as mentioned before, both have experience living abroad. So I want to ask you, was secondhand shopping kind of like a thing when you lived
it is
abroad?
kind of a common thing to visit. So in the UK, offline or online secondhand stores like Oxfam, we have Oxfam offline secondhand store. It have been very active for a long time. Parents often visit these stores to buy secondhand toys and books for their children, including myself. I remember buying some horse toys several times at Oxfam. I was so into horses. So
horses? Yeah, I was too at
you
one
was
time.
too?
Yeah.
I thought I was the only one, but families often visit there with their family stores together on weekends to choose secondhand clothing, furniture, electronics, and household appliances as well. Parents often teach their children, the value of buying items inexpensively at secondhand stores, which not only benefits their kids, but also helps support neighbors in need. And sometimes you can find unique and valuable and precious, sometimes very, very precious items in these stores, almost like discovering artifacts when visiting these secondhand stores.
It kind of sounds like a museum now.
Yeah, you have to dig into it, yeah.
Right, so that's how it is in the United Kingdom. Now, anything that you'd like to add, Walter?
Well, there's 2 things, 2 countries I'll mention. One is Australia, and Jihyun actually did remind me that my mother used to also buy a lot of secondhand furniture and refurbish it and then sell it. So that's the sort of thing that is also very common in Australia, is that you can redo things up, you can refurbish it, and then obviously get more than what you paid for. But interestingly, in Japan has the largest second-hand trading platform. As part of environmental activism, they actually showcase a fashion show in November featuring outfits created from clothing contributed to by ordinary users.
That's so cool.
So promoting a fashion show with these so-called new clothes, but they're actually second-hand clothes. So that's quite interesting that people do that.
Right, a lot of interesting, fascinating examples. Now, to find out even more, we're now going to invite a Gen Zer living in the United States to talk about secondhand shopping. We'll be right back after the break. Right, so today we're joined by Linda Tapia, an American Gen Z who's living in San Francisco. Thanks for joining us today.
Thank you for having me. Good morning.
Great. Good morning. Lovely to have you. So our first question for you, Linda, is have secondhand stores also soared in popularity among millennials and Gen Z in your country, that is the United States?
Oh, yes. I feel like everyone I know from my generation, we're all going to thrift stores and secondhand shops. I mean, when I get together with my friends, we're all like, we should go thrift shopping. It's an activity. It's something to do. And it's become so popular, I feel, because of social media. We see a lot of people finding these beautiful pieces of clothing through a secondhand shop. And so it kind of becomes like a scavenger hunt, trying to find a bit of treasure out in these shops. And I think it's so great because we're repurposing these items, and it could be from clothes to furniture. Just about everything in my apartment has been repurposed. And it hasn't always been like this. You know, growing up, we found something really cute at a thrift store. We wouldn't actually say we got it at a thrift store. So it's really nice to have a different perspective on it.
So Linda, how do consumers engage in second-hand shopping in your country? Do they primarily use stores, online applications, or websites?
I feel for clothing, we mainly go to secondhand shops because you never know how something's going to fit. But if we're going to buy some furniture, I personally use Facebook Marketplace and talk to the person selling their item directly, get more information about it. Also, there are online stores like Mercari is a very popular place to get some really nice like leather goods or other type of clothing. And it makes it easier to find something specific on online sites, because sometimes if you go to a store in person, you might not find anything that you like.
You've actually quite surprised me when you said that basically everything in your apartment is either secondhand, and you have a beautiful apartment from what I can see. So it's very amazing that you can actually repurpose a lot of things and still make it look as beautiful as your apartment. But so it seems like you do a lot of shopping. Do you have any tips for successful buying or even selling secondhand items?
I think if you're trying to get rid of items as quickly as possible, get it out at a fair price. But if you know you have something valuable, do price it a little bit more. Another thing is to do your research on your items and things that you want to buy, especially for higher end items, because you don't want to be buying something that is fake. And then also, don't deposit money to people you haven't met in person if you're trying to purchase something through like a marketplace, like on Facebook. And always ask questions if you're not sure if you're gonna like a product. Like if I'm shopping on Mercari, I'll ask for more pictures or maybe more dimensions on like a jacket or a shirt. And also, it might be a hit or a miss. Oftentimes I go to a secondhand shop and I don't get anything because I don't want to also buy more things that just going to take up space in my small apartment.
Great. Oh, very well noted. Some good advice. All right. Thank you so much, Linda, for your time today.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you, Linda.
Lovely. So doing research, asking a lot of questions are some of the great advice that our interviewee gave us. Now, expanding on this, what should we be mindful of when buying or even selling items on these secondhand platforms?
We have to be always careful. When buying and selling secondhand items, it's important to observe etiquette between the parties and avoid excessive bargaining. You know, direct transactions are safer than shipping, as you can inspect the items in person. And it's also wise advised to be cautious when dealing with electronic devices in order to prevent potential disputes later on. Always keep records of communications and agreements to protect yourself. Remember, trust and transparency, secondhand transactions. But if you need any advice, just DM me, or my hubby.
Yeah,
if you need any help.
She's definitely a secondhand shopping professional.
I
can
am.
see that based on our discussion today. Now, what about you, Walter?
I don't know what else I could say. She said basically everything that I think that you need to do, but especially when it comes to thrift stores, obviously the reason why they're probably in there is because there is a defect within it. So you can probably, like Jihyun said, maybe not bargain so much, but you can always make sure you're looking out for maybe what's wrong with the item and take a closer look. So if you go into thrift stores, that's the best kind of way to buy secondhand, I think. When it's online, it's a little bit more difficult. You don't know if, some people aren't a little bit dishonest about it. It's like your resume. You put something on there that's really, really high.
What a metaphor.
Yeah, it's a very good metaphor. We always are like, oh yes, this is in perfect condition. But yeah, you just got to be a bit more careful online. But I always recommend going and actually seeing the product before actually buying.
Right, I think that it's never too bad to be careful, right?
Yeah, I think
Well, I hope that our discussion today helps those potential shoppers who are planning to visit thrift stores or secondhand platforms. And that's all the time we have for today. But NewsGen is here every day from 9:30 to 10 a.m. Korea time, bringing you more topics young people are talking about. Special thanks today to Kwon Ji-hyun.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you. Lovely to have you. And Walter Lee.
lovely to be here.
And thank you everyone for watching. Hope you have a great weekend. We are News Generation.